Welcome to For the Common Good with Juanita, a show where we inform, inspire, and empower our businesses, communities, and people just like you. So whether you're starting a new business, expanding an existing business, or just trying to help a community to thrive, we've got something just for you. Today on the show, we are talking about a tiny dose of faith. A tiny dose of faith. And our guest today, Dr. Jade Ranger, is going to talk to us about that. And let me tell you a little about Dr. Ranger. She graduated with a doctorate of pharmacy degree in 2012 from Hampton University. Yay, Hampton! HU. And she spent the first decade of her career though working at a big chain pharmacy. In 2019, along with her husband, who also was in the pharmacy school at Hampton University, they opened their business called the Pharmacy Shoppe, which is basically a full-service mom-and-pop pharmacy located in the greater Williamsburg community here in Virginia. She's involved in a number of community professional organizations and recently began an appointment at the national level as a member of the editorial advisory board of Pharmacy Today. Congratulations, that is huge, a huge accomplishment. She's also added author to that resume. She just recently published a book called Mustard Seed Mentality. Unscripted Pearls of Wisdom from a Mother, a Wife, and an Entrepreneur. She was also chosen as one of the top 15 businesses under 50 from the Williamsburg Chamber of Commerce. So in the top 15 under 50 for the Williamsburg Chamber of Commerce. And she's the top 20 women in business in Hampton Roads Inside Business 2021. Wow, you've been busy. So Dr. Ranger and her husband, also Dr. Ranger, are business partners with 2 children, Jacob and Joshua, and she attends Zion Baptist Church in Williamsburg, Virginia. So welcome to the show,
Dr. Ranger.
Thank you
for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you all today.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. This is really exciting. So I want to start out talking about your book. That's a major accomplishment.
Thank you.
It really is. But you named it Mustard Seed Mentality, and I know that meant a lot to you. So what's the background behind that?
The background behind the Mustard Seed Mentality is just that it takes only a little bit of faith. You know, throughout life we have so many struggles, so many things throughout our journey, ups and downs. But it really doesn't take much. And I think my life experience has shown me that time and time again, whether it's with my mother's cancer diagnosis, my sister's cancer diagnosis, trying to make it through pharmacy school, starting a small business from scratch. And so each time I've had to really rely on my mustard seed mentality, as I like to call it, to basically get me through those or trials or tribulations or jump over those hurdles.
Wow, that's amazing. So it's impacted your life?
My entire life.
Wow. Little bit of faith. So what would be your advice to working mothers who are trying to juggle it all? Super women, they call them, right?
You know what? If for anyone who's interested in reading my book, I'm very clear about the fact that, I've only been a mother myself for about 8 years. My older son will be 9 in September. I've got 2 boys. I'm a boy mom. My little one will be 5 in September. So again, this is not me saying that I'm an expert in motherhood or I'm an expert in marriage. I'll be celebrating a 10-year anniversary coming up in June, or an expert when it comes to small business. But this is me saying these are some things I've tried or tapped into along the way, and that has helped me be successful, at least thus far, along my journey. And so, I tell moms, I don't know that we're ever going to be able to really accomplish or achieve true balance, but we have to make sure that we're filling into our cup. It's kind of just like, the analogy of when you're on a flight. If you're going down, you have to put on your safety stuff first. You have to save yourself before you can save others. And I think, it's very easy for women to get lost in our role of wife, mother, working woman. We can forget about ourselves. And so I want to try to remind moms out there, even when you're trying to juggle all of the things, you still have to take time to fill your cup. Otherwise, you're just going to become more and more exasperated, and you won't have any to give to others. And so that's the first thing. But the second thing is to really tap into your village, your community. Don't be afraid to ask for help. I think as a new mother, when I had my older son, he was a bit colicky, so that was a struggle. I thought we were going to be one and done for a short time period. But I remember, you almost had this sense of shame or embarrassment. You didn't want to reach out and tell people that you needed help because you wanted to feel like you had it all together. But as I grew, became more mature along my motherhood journey, I realized, hey, there's nothing wrong with asking for help, for telling people I need assistance. I need to, help making this work. And that's really been the only way that my husband and I have accomplished all the things that we have, because we have such a phenomenal support system that now I'm not ashamed to ask for the help. People will step in, whether it's grandparents, neighbors, church members, and that's been huge for our small business and for our family as a whole. And then the other thing is that you really can't compare yourself to someone else. I think in this age where social media is everywhere, you can scroll and compare yourself to this mom or that mom, whether you're talking about looks or how they mother or whatever. You can't get caught up in that. You have to focus on yourself. And I think when you do that, you can appreciate, celebrate others' successes, but you're not then as inclined to get down on yourself because you're not doing X, Y, and Z that you see someone else doing.
So you have to create that balance in your life. Wow. That's just so important, because otherwise you're exhausted, you burn out, and that affects your family as well.
It does, because it's affecting you negatively. That's going to pour into your family. So
wow, that's great. Well, this is really exciting. We're going to take a short break and we'll be right back. You've been listening to For the Common Good with Juanita. We'll take a break and we'll be right back. Don't you go anywhere. Welcome back to For the Common Good with Juanita. And I am talking to Dr. Jade Ranger, and the topic today is a tiny dose of faith. And I wanted to ask you, Dr. Ranger, about your new business, the Prescription Shoppe, a mom and pop pharmacy. It took a lot of courage to do that, to go out on your own. I'm sure, it's always comfortable when you've got all these, surrounded by other organizations and you're working for them. But when you're on your own, you're on your own.
Yeah, you are.
So tell us about the Prescription Shoppe and what makes it different.
There's so many different pharmacies out there, whether you're talking about the bigger chain pharmacies or even other independent community pharmacies. But the thing that we really try to pride ourselves in is the patient care aspect and the customer service. So you can get your prescriptions filled at any pharmacy, but we're more so focused on the experience that you have when you come to the Prescription Shoppe. So when our patients come into our store, we know them by name. They know about us. We celebrate things that happen in their life. So whether that's, someone has a birth in the family, we give them a card, we acknowledge that. Someone has a graduation, maybe from high school or college, we give them a little gift, we acknowledge that. Someone passes, unfortunately, we have a lot of hospice patients, we acknowledge that. And just those extra little small sentiments, it goes such a long way because people feel that connection. And then they're also more inclined to trust us. So when we have something like a worldwide pandemic that happens and a new vaccine that comes out, people are on edge. They're concerned about that. That's something that gives them a little bit of pause. Should I take this vaccine? Is it safe? Is it safe for my kids, my family? And because we've forged these relationships with our patients, they feel comfortable to come to us. We can have these conversations and then ultimately help them make decisions for their health care, for their overall well-being.
That's amazing. And you just don't get that at many of the other pharmacies. So you really are part of the community.
Absolutely.
They're like family to you, right?
That's actually our motto, where you're not a customer, you're family. My husband and I started this pharmacy 3 years ago, and from scratch, so it is not a franchise. And it's one of these things that, it's amazing to kind of see the journey come full circle, how we're so beloved in our community. And that's because we are involved in our community. So we don't just stop at the prescription shop. We collaborate with other small businesses. We do a ton of community service within our community. And
you go to churches a lot, and
exactly.
during COVID,
All
I think you were
types of
at some
things.
of the churches.
Doing COVID vaccine clinics, or just flu clinics, anything. And so I think when you really put yourself out there and you immerse yourself within your community, then that comes back to you. And it's so cool because we're a part of this whole community of small business owners now too, where in addition to our patients and colleagues, the relationships that we formed with the other small business owners has been such a cool experience. Now we link up and we do things together. To give you an example, during COVID, when we were trying to encourage people to get their vaccines, we teamed up with the Virginia Beer Company, which is a local brewery here. Those two William Mary grads that own that place. And basically it was like, we had for the common good, or for the common health of the Commonwealth, excuse me. And so it was promotion where you came and got a vaccine, we gave you a coupon, you could then take it, of course, once you recovered, and get half off your pour. So just little things like that, I think it goes a long way.
Well, you've learned a lot on this journey, I'm sure, starting a business. And have you thought about a franchise?
We don't actually have a desire to franchise the prescription shop. We do have a desire within the next 5-7 years to have a second location, but we actually have a passion to encourage other pharmacists to branch out and start their own independent community pharmacies as well. And so we are just gearing up to launch Ranger Consulting, which is going to be focusing on helping other pharmacists who love community pharmacy but maybe hate working in retail to say, hey, take the reins back of your career. You can do this. Obviously, it's going to take a leap of faith, but it's worth it. The reward that you receive is invaluable.
So you develop the model, basically. You package the model, and that's what you can use to help other pharmacists to do the same thing. That is awesome. And that's giving back to your community as well. That's great. You tapped into what you call your mustard seed mentality. Now, how would someone else do that? How do you do that?
It's funny. I was recently on a podcast, the Political Pharmacist podcast, and the way that he talked about it, I had never thought of myself, but I thought it was a very neat idea. He said, when you are out here doing things in the community, you are basically essentially sharing your mustard seed with others, and then people are able to water it, see it grow for themselves. They're encouraged, they are inspired to do the same thing. And so tapping into your mustard seed mentality, we all sometimes struggle with, believing in ourselves. Are we going to be able to make our dream work, or whatever the case may be? But you really have to just go for it. That's part of it. Have that faith in yourself, obviously in God as well, and just realizing that you never know until you try. So you've got to put yourself out there. You have to be willing to take the risk. And the reality is that if it doesn't work out, something else will work out. And I think that's just what we have to remind ourselves.
So we all have that potential inside. So it just takes a little bit of faith.
Absolutely.
Oh, that is really, really amazing. And so anyone can do it. I think this is so inspiring because, people will look at you. I mean, you certainly could have stayed where you were, working in a pharmacy in a large chain. But now, not only are you doing what you love, which is the pharmacy piece, you're giving back to the community in such a way that's so powerful. And like you said, during COVID, especially COVID, when people were listening, they needed information. And where do they go to get that information? Because there's so much misinformation out on the internet, but they trusted you because you helped them with their prescriptions and taking care of themselves. So they trusted you about the vaccine and getting information about that. That's very powerful.
I think the other piece of it too, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the fact with my husband and I being young Black small business owners, that I think in the midst of the pandemic, it really kind of showed me that people need people that they can look to, that they can trust. And so when you had a lot of people of color that had hesitance for getting the vaccine for various
because of
reasons.
some of the history.
Exactly,
right?
and rightfully so. But they were able to come in, and you could tell they felt comfortable coming and speaking with my husband, asking questions. And we were never trying to, push it on anyone. We were like, hey, we're here to be a resource for you. We want to help you navigate this. But by also kind of leading by example, and they saying like, hey, we got the vaccine, our parents got the vaccine, we've given it to our kids or our older son who's old enough. I think, leading by example went a long way as well.
And I wanted to ask you, because I think, do you have interns in your business? Can you talk about that?
I do. So we actually are preceptors for Hampton University School of Pharmacy, which is both of our alma maters. Like you mentioned, my husband and I actually met in pharmacy school, and that has been an amazing experience. It's another opportunity for us to give back or lift as we climb, pay it forward. That has been so cool. That is one of my favorite parts about the prescription shop. Is so often we have students come in, they're young adults. Often they're very candid about the fact, I've never worked in a Black-owned pharmacy before. They're excited, they come in, they're ready to hit the ground running. And in addition to, us teaching them things and kind of pouring into them, they teach us things too. I've graduated from pharmacy school about 10 years ago now. So learning some of the things that they come in and talking about is just mutually beneficial, but we try to continue to grow those relationships with them. So even past their 5-week rotation with us at the prescription shop, we still call them, we still FaceTime them, we still text them. They come back and visit us, when they're back in the area. And so that, I think, is just a priceless experience to realize you are impacting people's lives. People don't realize that the number of African American pharmacists in this country is very low. It's 5%. So that's a very, very small margin. And so when you have the opportunity to encourage someone that, hey, you see me doing this, you see my husband doing this, you can also do this, you can also flourish as well. I think that's definitely inspiring to them.
So before the university placed those students, you had to go through a process, right, to be able to do that?
You have to sign up to be a preceptor. They have to come check you out, make sure. But they obviously knew us where we matriculated through their program, but yes.
Wow, that's amazing. We're going to go to break.
Okay.
We'll be right back. You've been listening to For the Common Good with Juanita. We'll be right back. Welcome back to For the Common Good with Juanita. Really, this has been a great show today. We've been talking to Dr. Jade Ranger about a tiny dose of faith and her new book, A Mustard Seed Mentality. So I wanted to ask you, Dr. Ranger, what has been, we've talked about a lot of things, and there's so many things that you've done since you started your business. It's hard to believe it's only been 3 years.
It is hard to believe. Time flies when you're having fun.
And so much community, support and in the community and giving back in the community. But what has been the most fulfilling part of your journey when you look back over the last 3 years?
I would say the impact that we've been able to have in our community. When I first went to pharmacy school, I had a vision of what I was going to be doing. And that was, helping my patients with their prescriptions. But through the prescription shop, I have superseded what I ever thought was possible for myself, what I ever envisioned or planned for myself. And I think just having people come in and tell me like, oh, you set an example, thank you for that, or thank you for being a leader in the community, or thank you for inspiring me, or, having parents bring in their children and wanting to talk to me and ask questions. That's a very humbling experience because I realize I'm actually making a difference in my community, but in people's lives. And so I think that is for sure one of the best parts of this journey.
Wow. So what's next?
There's
so much that you could do. What would be next for you? I can't even imagine right now. There's so many opportunities.
You know what? When we started this journey, I just prayed, Lord, I don't know where this is going. And I just pray that you help us to be open to wherever you take this. And already, even if nothing else happens, the number of accolades and awards and the times we've been recognized, even in the short 3 years, I would be fine because that's already superseded, like I said, what I ever would have envisioned for myself. But now I think I'm more open and kind of willing to go with the flow because I see that, God has kept us this entire time. I definitely believe this whole thing has been God ordained. And so I have aspirations to hopefully write, another book, maybe 2. We'll see if I have time to fit that in. But in addition, we talked about a potential second location, so we're excited about that. And just kind of growing our influence in the community. We talk about foundation work and things like that. So I'm open. I have a few things coming down the pipeline, but ultimately, I want to be in obedience with what God has for me.
Wow. And definitely, you have a purpose.
Thank
there's
you.
a reason that, and the timing is always perfect too, according to God's plan.
Amen.
Wow, great. Well, I'm so excited about what you're doing, especially in the community and how you're connecting with the community. And I think, young people can look at your example and say, wow,
I think that's something that I really try to harp on. I tell people all the time, I was reading Bakari Seller's book, I can't remember if that was last year or the year before. This time is flying by. But he talks about how so often, children of color are told that they should try to be a doctor or a lawyer or whatever. But it's hard for children to envision themselves doing something when they haven't seen or had those examples set for them in the flesh. And so I think it's so important. I don't take that lightly that I am setting an example for kids, and not just children of color, but anyone, but letting them know, reminding them like, hey, if you put your mind to it, if you're willing to put in the work, then you can achieve your goals. And so it's one of those, it's not easy. I'm tired. I work hard. But ultimately I keep going. And I think that's kind of the message that I want to remind, especially young people, as they're finding their way in the world, that you're constantly learning, even for myself, I just turned 35. I'm constantly learning, constantly growing, constantly evolving. And you have to be open to that. You have to be willing to learn. And I think that when you are open to that, good things come your way.
Yeah, you're giving back so much, but so much is coming back to you. And I just think that's awesome. So how would someone reach you if they wanted to follow up to the interview?
Sure. So we have a website, www.tpsva.com. So that's for the prescription shop. The Mustard Seed Mentality website is www.msm1720.com. And then there's also my email, which is jade.ranger@tpsva.com. We're on social media, so we're on Twitter, Instagram, and then also Facebook. So feel free to look us up.
That is awesome. Thank you again so
Thank
much.
you so much for having me.
You are so welcome. And thank you for tuning in to For the Common Good with Juanita. We'll see you next time.